All right, welcome into Before Floor, an extension to 5 on the floor here in the 5 Reasons Sports Network. What the heck am I doing here? Ethan Skolnick, you can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. We got Gad Cartagena, you can follow me at Gadiel Cartagena. We got Greg Slavander, who, as many of you know, you can follow at Greg Slavander. That makes it easy. And my co-hosts on 5 on the floor, both Greg and I will be on the post-game show tonight. 5 on the floor live after the Heat play Atlanta. We will get to everything we're going to talk about today in a second. Before we do, I want to mention our sponsors. Prize Picks, use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Get the initial deposit match up to $100. Lots of people playing this weekend. We know Dolphins season is over, but you got the Bucks against Dallas tonight. And also, of course, you've got this Heat game coming up. We'll go through some of the Prize Picks on the board today. That Jimmy never looks high. All right, we'll go through all of this as we go forward. And, of course, you can also play MMA, NHL, and all of the other sports. They do not have any rollovers. You play 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players together. Download it at prizepicks.com or the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. But make sure you use that code 5, F-I-V-E. All right, let's get to it. Then we'll mention Mark Brown. You know what? We'll mention Mark Brown in the middle. We'll get to him in the middle here today. Let's get to the Heat and the Hawks. Miami playing better of late. It's hard to know exactly what to make of the 2 wins against the Bucks because there was, no Giannis. So that was a bit of an issue in terms of evaluating exactly where the Heat are. But no Kyle Lowry in that game. No Tyler Hero for Miami. Gabe Vincent scored 55 points in the last 2 games. We have the Gabe Vincent number 1 supporter here on the show today. Maybe he can help me out a little bit because everybody's saying I got scorched on the podcast last night. Alf on City, when I tried to make the case for Gabe to start, Alf just came in with stats, which I've never seen Alf come in with stats. It's usually all what he sees. But let's get into who's playing and who's not tonight. So, Greg, what is the latest in the actives?
Sounds like so far for Miami, we may see the return of Caleb. I think he was last listed as questionable, unless I'm missing that. Obviously, the rest of the guys that we expect to be out, Jovic is out, Duncan Robinson is out, Kyle Lowry is out, but Tyler Hero is available, so that will be a nice addition to the roster. So I think that I've got that covered. I'll try to make sure that I didn't miss anybody in between our next segment, but that's essentially the long and the short of it.
All right. Well, here's the thing with Caleb. I did talk to him in the locker room after the game the other night. He told me he was very close to playing in that game against Milwaukee on Saturday, and that he just didn't want to re-injure it like he did in Los Angeles. He wanted to be himself. Sounded to me like he would play the next game, so I would not be surprised at all if he plays today. Here's the thing, Gad. If Tyler's going to play and Lowry's still out, then we get a look at what I think a lot of us want to look at, right? Gabe and Tyler in the starting lineup together with Oladipo coming off the bench and leading the bench. This could make our case.
It could. And I think one of the things that you want to look for is more so, I think offensively, you're kind of confident in the fit between Gabe and Tyler because Gabe has shown that he's very comfortable kind of minimizing his role and just being the guy who brings the ball up and then taking maybe a mid-range and a catch and shoot 3 every now and again, but nothing too crazy. He's capable of expanding that if necessary, but he's very comfortable in that smaller role. But defensively, I think one of the things you would look for is, like you were mentioning on the pod, just that point of attack defense. If you get that, how much does that change things? Because the Heat have obviously, with Oladipo back, with Gabe now being more healthy, the defense has changed a lot because of that added level of defense at the point of attack. So is that going to look different? Because I think offensively, there really isn't that much of a case to be made for Gabe to be better for the starting lineup than Kyle. I think they're more or less the same. Gabe maybe is a little bit more versatile in terms of the levels at which he can score, but Kyle is probably better at playing like the catch and shoot role and sometimes shooting those pull-up threes, although he hasn't had that going as much this year. And he definitely gets to the free throw line more. So I think the defense could be one of the factors that could maybe influence a decision or a change moving forward. But offensively, I don't think you're going to see anything too crazy that's just going to wow people. I understand Gabe is coming off setting the world on fire for the last 2 games, but that is most likely the aberration. I don't think you're counting on him to score anything north of like 10 points per game if he'd be.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he was going to start averaging 20.
No, I'm not going to. Nothing crazy today. Nothing crazy today.
Greg, so were you swayed? Because you have been, I think you've been more negative about Kyle than I have, actually. Although I've been pegged with this reputation. And Alf, of all people, coming in with stats, I did not know what to do with that. I mean, were you swayed by his argument? Because I feel like Brady and I are on the complete same page now that Kyle should not be an automatic closer. That Oladipo is the fourth automatic closer.
Agreed.
And the fifth one could be Kyle, it could be Gabe, it could be Max, it could be Caleb, it could be Haywood Highsmith. It could be, until they make a move, obviously. It could be any of these guys. The starting lineup, it felt like Brady moved a little bit more towards Alf, like leaving Lowry there for now when he comes back. Where are you on both of those things?
Well, I guess it's easy to do it this way. The Heat are 7-3 in their last 10. So whatever they're doing lately has worked enough for them to win at a clip that will make them move up the standings quickly. So I am a little hesitant to rock the boat too much, because a big thing we talked about in early December specifically was, can they even make it to January 15th when guys are available to be traded? Can they even make it to the trade deadline without having to get reinforcements, just by sheer virtue of the fact they didn't have enough bodies some nights? Well, now they're 7-3 in their last 10. They can build on that. So to me, I don't think that the right move for everyone involved is to make it look in any way that you're demoting Kyle Lowry. And I don't know how you avoid that narrative from not spreading, even if the most sensible folks say that that's not the case, including Eric Spoelstra. So to me, it's a moot point. You keep Kyle in the starting lineup until you see if you're able to reshape the roster, then maybe you look to do things differently. But for now, I say keep it as it is. But I want to see a lot of Gabe. I will say that.
I listened back to Jimmy's response to me about Gabe before Jimmy bolted out the door. And because I wanted to hear the words carefully, because at first I heard it as Gabe is a starter in this league. Right. And so I started thinking, okay, wait, maybe he's moving towards maybe Gabe, being comfortable with Gabe as a starter. But then he made it really clear he said something to the effect of when the starter is out to that extent. And so we know Jimmy's not going to move on from Kyle, obviously. And we know that Jimmy's going to be consulted about things that happen with this team, because that is the smart thing to do. I do want to get into a couple of other rotation issues here, though. I was somewhat surprised, I would say pleasantly surprised, with a couple of things about Dwayne Dedmon on Saturday. The first thing was the second thing, which was that he spoke to the media. He handled it professionally. He said he understands the deal. I mean, he was accountable, which you give him credit for that. But the second thing I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised about, was that he didn't play. Because I really thought that Spoelstra would plug him back in, and he went with Orlando Robinson again. And we saw, again, the Orlando Robinson minutes were fine. They hold serve when Orlando Robinson is on the floor and Bam is out. So I'll go to you with two decisions that have to be made here, Gad. One is, if Caleb is back, do you plug him back in the starting lineup? Would that be what you would do, or would you leave Highsmith there? And what is the role for Highsmith going forward? And the second is, I mean, is there any justification, even when you're playing a team with size, which this team you playing today has, for going back to Dedmon over Orlando Robinson?
Okay, so the second question, I'm going to say no. I think Orlando Robinson, for whatever lack of size he has, I think he's pretty smart in terms of the way that he manages that lack of size, where he doesn't really have a vertical at all. He does not jump high, but he has ridiculously long arms, and he's really good at timing when he's going to reach up in terms of trying to block shots, grab rebounds, whatever it may be. And he's got pretty fluid movement. He moves well defensively, in my opinion. So just having someone who is capable of moving a little bit more, and maybe if you're going to play zone, can actually anchor that zone, I think that's enough to just keep Dedmon on the bench. Just keep him where he is. He can clap, and that's pretty much it. You don't need much else from him. Probably going to end up giving the guys a couple good energy moments for every now and again here and there, but nothing crazy. I don't want to see Dedmon on the floor at all, if I'm being honest with you. And with Highsmith and Martin, I would start Caleb. I think the athleticism that Caleb has is really huge for this team. But I think there could be some moments where you could stagger a little bit more, and maybe you get Caleb involved with the bench unit, because Depot and Caleb playing together, that's a team that can play fast, play recklessly almost, and they can fly around defensively depending on who else you put with them. So maybe you do Depot, Caleb, Bam with two other players, and then you put Highsmith as maybe one of the first subs, and he comes in not playing more than 15 minutes a game, but he gives you some solid stretches where he is more of that stronger, more physical defender, and he's taking on the bigger matchups. And Jimmy can kind of be the guy that's flying around a little bit. So I think he's a good chess piece to have. I don't think he's something that you want to throw in the starting lineup. I would stick with Caleb. I think Caleb's done a really good job this year. And when he's confident shooting the ball, which he has been, he's honestly been a difference maker when he's on the floor.
Well, I think his health has mattered too, and the fact that he's taken some time to actually get healthy this time should be helpful. I will, when you look at, we're talking about Highsmith, we're talking about Robinson. We've talked a little about Kane has had some moments where he's helped them of late. That has been the one plus side of this. That they some of these guys, they've kind of figured out what they can do and they can't do. I'm not saying that any of them are going to be prominent when we get into the playoffs, but like they are plug guys for now, at least until a trade for, Orlando Robinson's a plug guy. Highsmith, to me, has played much better offensively over his past few appearances than he was over his previous few appearances. Like he's not been a net negative for them offensively, which is, again, that's all you're asking for somebody like that, especially having more of your core pieces back. All right, I do want to mention Mark Brown, and then we're going to get to our prize picks of the day. We'll get to a pick today and also talk a little bit about the Hawks. Mark Brown, again, reach out to him, markbrownpa.com. There he is, the man with a plan. I think he's somewhere in Mexico right now. But when he gets back, he can help you design an estate plan. And that is very important. If some of you have a family, you need to make sure that your money goes to the people it should go to. You've worked hard for it all your life. You don't want it in probate. It's a mess. Trust me, I have some family history with that. Don't do it, okay? Make sure that you have a living will. You have all of the documents that you need. He'll provide these documents to you. You never know what's going to happen to you. We obviously know that life can just go sometimes. You're here one day, not the next. So reach out, markbrownpa.com. Again, marcbrownpa.com, or the phone number is 954-566-5678, or that one there, 954-866-8513. Either of you will get to their office. They also have a real estate company or title company right there in-house, so he can help you with your closing. He's done that for me twice and did a terrific job with it. All right, let's get to the prize picks today, and then we'll get to the picks. We'll talk about the Hawks. What do you got, Greg? What's on the board?
So there's some low-hanging fruit with just points straight up. They have Jimmy Butler. The graphic that you saw earlier, I think, may have been a static old graphic because they have him at 20.5, which he has eclipsed that twice over his last 5. He's averaging 22.8 in his last 5. So I don't know. That's not my favorite play.
Yeah, but Greg, he also sat the entire fourth quarter of the last game. He was at 16, right?
That's true.
And there was another game that he had 20 and he sat on it. I know because I keep playing it.
But here's an even better one for Jimmy. He's at the over-under on his free throws made is 6.5. He's gone over on that in 4 of his last 5. And like you said, in the last one, he wasn't really needed in certain points. And here's the big thing. In his last 5, he's averaging 9.8 free throws made a game. So like 6.5 feels low to me. That's a free square on Prize Picks. Use the code 5 to get your initial deposit matched up to $100.
All right. And I saw you also liked Hero over 2.5 free throws. Is that right?
Yep. That's another one. Okay.
I don't know how I feel about you, DeJounte Murray under 2.5 free throws made, though. That one I'm not totally sure about. Home crowd, I don't know. The 3-4 free throws not that hard to get to, but I understand it. Use the code 5 FIV. All right, Gad, let's talk about the Hawks a little bit. A lot of messy. The Eastern Conference is a mess. Western Conference is a mess. I think on paper before the year, the Hawks, you thought they'd be better than Indiana. Maybe you thought they'd be better than the Knicks. Maybe they kind of settle in behind sort of the Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Brooklyn Heat group. But they're settling like a group below that, it seems like this year. John Collins is in trade talks always. Trey, DeJounte's been great, but the fit with Trey hasn't been great. Like, what do you do to attack this Hawks team? We know obviously that Gabe has been sort of an answer against Trey in the past.
To attack the Hawks team, basically whoever's dribbling the ball, set a screen, get DeJounte off the ball, and then try to get Trey on the ball. Like DeAndre Hunter, I don't think he's taken the step that the Hawks probably anticipated. John Collins is a defender that you can attack. I think Onyeka Okongwu was really good, but he isn't really good with the personnel that they have. So you have players that you can attack. I know Capella's playing today in a minutes restriction. They really need a healthy Clint Capella because he makes a little bit of a difference for them. But, I mean, he's kind of been in and out of the lineup. I don't know. This team is just very lackluster. Like, anytime I watch the Hawks play, they'll have some good moments. They'll have some good runs. They can get out in transition. DeJounte loves to run. He's one of those one-man fast break types guys that just has ridiculous speed in the open floor. But they really just don't have too many strengths, if I'm being honest with you. The offense feels a little bit clunky. I thought Bogdanovich would help with that when he was healthy. He really hasn't. John Collins has struggled as a shooter. Their bench doesn't really have much, if I'm being honest with you. AJ Griffin is solid, but nothing.
Atlanta's going to make moves, guys.
Yeah, no,
I think
they
so.
have to.
I
They
think
have
so.
to.
I think they missed Kevin Herter too. Actually,
for sure.
Who's had a good year in Sacramento. I mean, he was a pain in the ass for the Heat. He has been wherever he's gone. Actually, was in Sacramento this year. So are you picking Miami today?
I'm picking Miami. Yeah. I think we know it's in Atlanta, and they're obviously going to have a good crowd. I think the Hawks crowd always gets up a little bit for the Heat, at least to start the game, and then by the end of the game, you might get some let go Heat chance.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
yeah,
they'll get a crowd. It's not gonna be for them the most.
Yeah, no. It starts out hot. I've been to 2 of those games over the last year, and like it starts out hot. The Hawks fans will go crazy early on, and then they'll just slowly fizzle out. And by the end of the fourth quarter, you just get let's go Heat chance, and that's more or less how it goes. But I'm rocking with the Heat. I think the Heat are playing better basketball. I think having the point of attack defense between Gabe, Caleb, and Vic is going to be huge for this team. And having someone who is more reliable to create their own shot in Tyler Hero, not having to rely on like a 20-point Gabe outburst or a 20-point Depot outburst by having Hero back. I think the Heat are just a really good basketball team right now, and they're better than the Hawks.
All right, we appreciate Alejandro Villegas for producing today. Greg, I will let you I'll finish actually, but I'll let you jump in here. You like the way they're playing right now, so I mean, this is a game you got to win, I would think.
Definitely, and I went on Better Edge and got Miami -1.5 at +101. So that feels good to me in terms of value there to take the favorite in this scenario. So use the code 5RSN on Better Edge and get $20 to start playing immediately. You could even bet against me if you let me know which one of the bets you're putting out there. I'm willing to do that. And here's the big thing: Miami is 13-7 in their last 20 against Atlanta against the spread after a win. So you know what? They're going to keep that going. I'm taking Miami and the 1.5 that they're favored by.
Miami has only struggled against Atlanta when Atlanta's been missing everybody. Right? I mean, that's it's the reality. They've only struggled against Atlanta when Atlanta's been missing everybody. I do think Miami wins today. I think a corner has been turned. I don't think it necessarily means that we're going to start going 100 miles an hour, but I don't think we're going to see some of the slippage that we've seen. I think that the Heat are going to play more to their norm. They are starting to play against better teams consistently. They caught a break with Giannis not playing for 2 games. I do think we're going to look back at that and say, that really helped. Okay, they got 2 games in the standings against a team that they're chasing, pretty far back still, but even so, and those are 2 games I think we might have chalked up at least 1 or maybe 2 as losses. So that's a positive for them. That makes up for some of what they've dealt with earlier this year. The energy, the disposition is better. They've cleared out some of the dead, and I mean that with no A in it, the dead weight in the rotation, and they've gotten away from their low point. Also intended. And so I think now that you've got, this kind of rotation, I think the interesting thing is going to be plugging Kyle back into it. Because I think they're going to start playing really well with this group. I love the 3-guard rotation of Vincent, Hero, and Oladipo. I think it covers everything that they need. It gives them attackers. It gives them a mid-range game with Hero. It gives them 2-point of attack defenders to cover up for the other guy. I really don't understand what they need from the guy who's out if those 3 guys are playing well. And I do think this is a conversation that's going to come up again. So as we're heading into the trade deadline, that's certainly something that I think the Heat brass is going to be thinking about. This looks pretty good with these 3 guys. What can we do for $28 million? So we'll see where that goes. Thanks to Gad. Thanks to Greg. Use that code 5 at PrizePicks. Excuse me. We will have the usual 5 on the 4 crew tonight. We never know with Alex, but Brady will be there with Greg and I, and we think Alex will show up at some point. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks again to Alejandro for producing.
You said the team was coming around, but did you expect it to happen sort of this way with so many guys out and Gabe Vincent stepping up and so many other guys filling in?
No, I can't say that I predict anything that's happened this year. But what I do commend and what you want out of a team is that you're growing from your experiences, particularly if you have some tough times, some adversity. You want that to bring a team closer together, and that's kind of what I've been saying. That's what I felt the last 3 weeks, regardless of the very tough, crushing losses. or the wins, you just can kind of sense when a team is getting bonded by those collective experiences. And in specific, the grit that we're developing is that even when there's some uneven times during the course of the game, we understand that it's a long game. You got to work the game. You got to try to wear on teams. Particularly defensively, we're getting much more consistent to our identity. And then as that happens, guys are starting to get healthier and find a more offensive rhythm. And the two biggest examples of that would be Gabe and Vic. They're getting healthier, and with the more minutes and more games, they're getting more comfortable with our offense, and you can see that they just give us a great punch, off the bench.
About Vic, I know you've said in the past that his progress is not going to be linear, right, with what he's gone through, but how encouraging is just the consistency that he's had these last few weeks with his impact on both ends?
Yeah, it's really encouraging. He's a major X factor for our team. That's what we had hoped for. That's what we anticipated. Even if you go back 2 years ago, I thought that team had a chance to be really good the year after the bubble when we acquired him, and it was short-lived. But you could tell even in those 4 games, it was like, okay, this looks different. This is going to help our team quite a bit, and that's what you're seeing right here. And he's had the mental and emotional stability to let it happen at the right pace and happen organically. When he first came back, I don't even know how many games he's played, less than 20, probably around 17. Initially it was just to give us that defensive presence, and then to be a facilitator for that second unit. It sounds great on paper, but if you ask a former All-NBA player and a former All-Star, regardless of what they've gone through, I would say 90% of them would say, no way. Put me in a position where I can be who I was. He understood that this was, going to take some time and to be patient with this process, and ultimately it would be about delayed gratification, and to build it up in a healthy way. And he hasn't skipped any steps. He's built up his body. He's taken every role and then conquer that role and get to the next one. And he's just been a great boost for us.
Shots still have to fall, but with Gabe and Vic playing like that, and then you've also got Tyler and Kyle who will be healthy. Is this as good of a group of ball handlers as you have had when it comes to attacking drop coverage and that space?
I hadn't thought about that. But Tyler for sure is like the drop killer. Bam's improvement was based out of, us struggling with the deep drop coverage, so we just worked on it ad nauseum. And his player development a lot of times was specific to that. So that really helps. Gabe has really worked on this now for 3 years. He was part of that playoff, series, so he's gotten much better against that. And Vic is a former, player. I say that with all the respect. He can play out of any coverage. So that certainly helps.
Just going back to Gabe there, I mean, it's been last season you talked a lot about kind of turning him from like a scoring 2 into a 1 and giving him those responsibilities, and then he has nights like this, 27, 20. I'm just curious, what you think about his growth over the last 2-3 years, kind of balancing those different sort of responsibilities.
Yeah, I think people tend to forget that he was in our program in Sioux Falls. EG coached him, and we started developing a lot of these habits, and he was in the bubble. We had so many practices and film sessions, player development sessions that he was a part of, that helped really lay the foundation that you're seeing, in these last couple of games. And he has the emotional stability to handle different roles that not every player in this league can accept. He can play off the ball, he can play on the ball, he can play as a little bit more of a scorer, he can be more of a facilitator if we have our full health. Those kind of guys are so invaluable in this league.
Spo Hayward only goes 3 of 4 tonight, but it seems like he's complimented, I guess, that first unit pretty well.
He played really well tonight.
Just where do you think, I guess, the fit is offensively specifically, like how it's clicked so quickly?
Again, he has been dealing with some minor things, and that's because he's just crushing all the things behind the scenes that our player development, program demands. So that progress is not something that's we've just been working on the last 2 weeks or since he started playing, in the rotation, since we've had the moving parts. This has been last year, all the practice sessions, summer league, August, September, and he's embraced this role. I think the role he played in summer league I thought was really important, and I think a lot of guys in that situation, they try to make a big splash and not play as a role player, but to try to score 25 points a game. He played the exact role that we're playing him in right now, and that took some emotional stability. So you're encouraged when guys get a lot better, but they also accept and embrace that kind of role. And he was really good tonight, really important. Okay, thank you.
Bam, 12 wins in the last 17 games. I know there's been different guys out throughout that whole stretch, another lineup, but what have you liked about kind of these last 17 games that have maybe turned things around for you guys?
You said what again?
Wins the last 17 games. What have you liked about the play during that stretch that's kind of turned?
I mean, we're winning. That's the biggest thing. But I feel like in this stretch, man, we've really been enjoying basketball. And you see it on the court. We're way more connected than we've been, since the beginning of the season. And we're executing, making plays, the guys making shots and getting in the rhythm.
How's Victor Oladipo's just consistent play kind of changed things for you guys on both ends?
I mean, just his obviously his impact defensively is just, unreal right now. He's being one of those guys where we need that do the dirty work. Pick up 94 feet, him and Gabe, and they're playing well off each other. And on the offensive end, he's getting back in his flow, and when I see it, sometimes it reminds me of when he was the All-Star Victor, and he's just being a star in his role on our team.
Man, you mentioned Gabe and Vic. They combined for 8 steals today. When the point of attack is kind of looking like that, I guess how much easier does that make your job defensively on a night like this?
I mean, when they getting steals, that mean I ain't got to do nothing on the back line. So, I mean, for me, just having those type of guys and taking that load off, and obviously when we get stops and we run in transition, I feel like we're one of those teams you can't beat.
Bam, I'm sure you've seen the All-Star voting returns that they're tweeting out and stuff. On a nationally televised game like tonight, does that serve as any motivation for you?
Nah. I mean, I'm going to do what I do at the end of the day. I can't pay attention to that. It's all about winning. I feel like winning takes care of everything.
And with Gabe and Vic on the other side of the floor, with those two, if they're playing like this, then you've got Tyler and Kyle as well. We've talked a lot about your development against drop coverage and against Brooke, but what do those guys do if they're going to be able to hit shots, in that drop space as well?
I mean, it just makes it more lethal for us. Now you got to make.
A quick note after the Phoenix game, it's just one win. Don't talk about winning streaks or anything like that. You've now won 12 of the last 17. What are the common bonds there that have gotten this team on the kind of role you talk about that you needed to get on?
Our togetherness. We're guarding at a high level. We're limiting our mistakes on the defensive end. Always helps to make shots. And we're competing. So as long as we take that into these next couple matchups we got on the road, I think we'll be all right.
The biggest growth that Gabe has made.
Not much, because Gabe has always been like that. you know, he plays his role to the T, and whenever it's needed for him to play like that, he can. But that's a pro's pro, knowing that, you know, you're a very capable starter in this league. And then whenever the guys get back, you come off the bench and you take on a different role. He's always done that. I've seen it day and day. I'm not surprised. Gabe is a post pro, like I said, and he deserves all the praise that he's getting. Big contract coming for the guy.
Gabe, obviously to follow up what you did with your previous career high again, is that part of being on a roll, or did you find something the other night that, hey, this works, do it again?
I think I was just in a rhythm, and my guys did a really good job of getting me open time and time again, whether they're setting the screen or cutting, you know, or finding me when I'm opening in the corner or something. They did a good job of that, and I made some shots. That always helps.
Okay, how much of these last 2 games is just a reflection of how you're feeling physically after what you've been through the first few months of the season?
I feel pretty good, so I'm sorry there's some correlation there. But just like we've been doing, just taking it one day at a time, trying to be aggressive, just trying to impact winning any way I can.
I think it was in the third quarter. It was a late clock possession. You had Drew on you, and you put an ISO on him and hit the pull-up. What's going through your mind when you're attacking a guy like Drew?
Drew's a hell of a defender. You know, he makes you do things you don't want to do. So I was just trying to get to my spot any which way I could. There was a point where I backed up and he kind of jumped me, and you know, it's similar to a closeout. So I had somewhat of an advantage to attack, and he had cut me off, and I had an angle to get a pull-up off, and it went down, thankfully. All right, y'all.